Welcome to Matrix Navigate. Now that you're out, let's take a look at this information from 1943, published by the U.S. Army Special Service Division. If you'd like to see the whole film, the link is in the description. I think by showing this, it highlights how simple it was to influence people using PPG. Now, the definition of PPG is to manipulate people's perception and behavior. So think about this. The year is 1943. You don't have a TV, you have a radio, and there's a theater where you can see films. Now, using either medium, you learn that on September 27th, the Germans wiped out Poland. So, what does that information mean to you as an American citizen? So, let's take a look for the next couple of minutes and see how you feel.
6 years of hard training and actual battle experience in Spain and Poland had made the German army look invincible.
Let's switch to today. You turn on the news and you hear/see a building crumbling in a country due to some war. And what does that mean to you as an American citizen? Should you care? Should you not care? Now, through new eyes, you see and experience things differently. You react differently because the old you, the blind you, no longer exists. You simply cannot turn a blind eye anymore. But what do you do about it?
Hardest thing that many lay people have to decide is, do I believe in science or do I believe in God? Science already knows the limits of what we can know, and religion already knows the limits of what we can know. Is there a place where those two things literally meet? Absolutely. And it comes from a place that is legitimate and respectable from a scientific perspective, as well as gratifying and satisfying, and also beautiful from this kind of spiritual notion.
All I can suggest is what works for me. And from my understanding, I'll say my clarity and understanding comes from what I know as God. It's hard to take anything seriously that's out there, except for those who are actually coming out and telling the truth about things because it's coming from their own perspective or from a perspective from somebody that they're close to. Um, to give an example, when I see a news clip, it appears false to me. I mean, I can see the theater in it. I just can't buy it. Like I said in the first video, it's just like watching wrestling. You know, wrestling is fake. So it seems like the same thing to me. There's a newscaster, CAST, caster, pretending to be genuinely interested in what a talking head is saying, and they're being paid to behave a certain way. So the talking head is also being paid to say what they are saying. So when it's broken down, all major news networks are owned by someone. All right, we have 6 conglomerates. You may be familiar with these. Comcast, Shareholders, or the largest shareholders, are Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street Corporation, Disney, Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Time Warner, Vanguard, BlackRock, CBS, Paramount Skydance Corporation, which is controlled by David Ellison and co-founder of Oracle, Larry Ellison. Now go look up Oracle and see what they've done lately. Viacom, Paramount Skydance Corporation, and News Corp, owned by the Murdoch family and other major shareholders, including Vanguard Group and BlackRock. All six of these companies are publicly traded. Now, you may ask yourself, why would a company trade publicly? To make money. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Now, the things that pop in my mind when it comes to the news is division. Now, if we go back to the video they used to describe war about the country, they said German, Polish, or Poland, Russians. Now, even now, we use terms Iraqis, Ukrainians, Palestinians, North Koreans, the Chinese. But when you get to America, it's incredibly divisive. Black, white, Republican, Democratic, and now with the newly elected mayor of New York City, socialist. Now, with new eyes, I see is foolishness. Therefore, I don't engage. I really, really don't care. I can't afford to care about fake stuff. It's fake to me. But all the parties play in our face. I see that they think or they treat their own people like they're idiots. So when I think deeply about some things, it becomes so obvious to me. Like, for instance, in 2020, Black Lives Matter. I say to myself, what kind of people would throw bricks through windows to scream Black Lives Matter? Why is it always it's the black folks tearing up and destroying stuff? You know? Now, interestingly, TikTok revealed the truth about things, showing a multitude of races destroying and looting. So they tried to put that on one group of people. And why? I asked. My answer was they wanted to continue the stigma that the black race is a hostile people or whatever. They just got tired to, they just tried to keep up that violent thought thing, like when people see a black person, oh my gosh, and that was a real thing. When they create these stigmas, those are real, okay, to make people act out emotionally. So, with that, I'm prayerfully thankful for exposure that black people are now choosing to sit down and not participate in a lot of things, like the recent No Kings rally. Black folks aren't doing much, you know. And now that the rap game is exposed for its demonic activities, um, and people are openly speaking out about the price of fame and getting demonically possessed and such, and the truth is being told in such a manner that there's hardly any rap in the top 40. Let's take a look. Okay, so we have the Billboard Top 40. Taylor Swift twice. Okay, we have Thriller at number 10. Okay, Taylor Swift 3 times. Okay, Taylor Swift 4 times. Monster Mash Ghostbusters. Somebody's watching me. Wow. 5, 6, Mariah Carey. 7, 8. Okay, so Not really in Iraq. Okay.
So we
So now they
have
have to find a
U.S.
new
House
boogeyman
returns to Washington
now that
for
black
vote
people
to end
are
government shutdown.
minding their own business.
Shutdown
Now, I'm not
deal
saying
lets senators sue for
they're not in the
$500,000 over
news.
data
No,
seizures,
everyone is in
like
the
those
news.
in
You know,
January 6
the
probe.
stories they
Trump
wish to
slams
tell and the
politically
stories
correct
that they're
politics in veterans'
pushing.
day.
So, one thing to watch
Republican
for is
congressmen
how
can't bankrupt
are
the
they
country
keeping
continuing to
Americans
subsidize
divided?
Obamacare. Messy politics of the Democratic shutdown deal. Trump floats $2,000 tariff rebate checks. Here's what you need to know. Embattled Border Control Commander Greg Baldino expected to depart Chicago in coming days. And foreign film fatale who was convicted of murder with exceptional cruelty busted by ICE. Okay, so we're not in the news. Okay, we're not seeing extreme Democrats. We're not seeing extreme Republicans. We're not seeing anything about Charlie Kirk. We're not seeing anything about Elon Musk. Um, there's a lot of things that we're not seeing. And these are the things that I just ran over. These are the things that they want us to focus on. And if we disagree, which is fine, but if we fight amongst ourselves, we can't unite. You know what I mean? So a house divided cannot stand. So look at Congress, the filibustering. They know this truth. So they use it possibly to buy time to launch the next operation. So the government was shut down for 40 something days and absolutely nothing, for nothing. It's shut down for nothing. And I'm not the only one that thinks so.
Government shutdown thing was always just a big ploy. Let me explain. So first, the news just broke that the longest ever government shutdown is finally coming to an end. They're saying that the broad framework for this agreement was negotiated by Senator Angus King, Jeanne Shaheen, and Maggie Hassan, as well as GOP senators, has now, quote, more than enough members of the Senate Democratic Caucus to advance, according to two people granted anonymity to disclose the terms. So then I went to research what was so different about this new bill, and the answer is absolutely nothing. They say that this deal is a pragmatic off-ramp from the initial stalemate, a quote-unquote cleaner CR with some wins for both sides, but it largely kicks the core fights, ACA subsidies, Medicaid cuts, down the road without resolution. So why the vote now? Well, it's this. One of the main reasons why the shutdown began in the first place is because the Democrats feared electoral backlash from their base. This is an article from last month, and they said that, quote, it's been clear to them that the American people don't want to see a Democratic Party that capitulates to a Republican extremism. They want a party that stands up for people's health care, that stands up for our democracy, and that's what they're doing now. And that message worked brilliantly for the Democrats. They absolutely shellacked the Republicans in the elections last week. And now Democrats who won their elections last week are coming out and saying, yeah, they can be done with this government shutdown now. Yeah, that big fight over healthcare, yeah, that is not even in this new bill. So we had a 40-day government shutdown, air traffic, a complete mess, massive red lines across the country for absolutely no reason. Okay, it's all a freaking game to these scumbags, and the American people are always the one to suffer.
Compared cultures and found that belief in a moralizing, all-seeing deity often develops in societies where social control is harder to enforce. In other words, religion didn't just promise heaven. It invented surveillance before governments ever could. The fear of being watched has been around a lot longer than cameras.
Fun fact of the day.
Use your own
An amendment
discernment.
requiring
If you believe in
psychologists
God,
and
the Lord
psychiatrists
Jesus
to
Christ,
dress as
fight
wizards when providing
for
expert testimony in
direction
court
and discernment.
unanimously passed the
God
New
is not a God
Mexico
of confusion.
State Senate in
Learn how to
1995,
navigate through
but
this
was never
place
signed into law.
successfully.
Head of the BBC and its head of news resigned today over edited footage of President Trump's January 6 speech that was put into a documentary. The speech was deceptively edited by splicing together two clips of President Trump speaking on January 6, 2021, to make it seem like he had directly told his supporters to storm the Capitol.
It hits the firmament, and the firmament stops it. Ain't nobody been to the moon. Ain't nobody been outside this giant cage we're trapped in. The firmament is real. This is why rocket ships take off and they start shooting at an angle. They'll scrape the firmament and they always land in the ocean. Then they shoot some grainy film that they were on the moon. It scraped the surface of the firmament, landed. That's all in one day. But the landing is like a week later. But that's when they show it. All the shit happened in one day.
The landing is the coming back.
There's no satellites out there either, nigga.
Yeah, because they ain't about to be out there floating.
There's no satellites.
You know, rockets, they have so many compartments that break off when you go. So how is the shit the same when it lands?
Yeah.
The same as it takes off.
Or even the satellite.
No, there's no satellites. They are hanging satellites in the firmament. This is our GPS system.
Corbell, George Knapp, please look me up. I'm a whistleblower. We live in a square like the Brady Bunch, and in those other squares are different civilizations. Space is fake. It's all it is a sailing. 3i Atlas is on its way back. That's actually the Anunnaki. They realize the Greys have a soul catcher on the moon, and they've been fucking trapping us for thousands of years. The Anunnakis found out about it, and they're coming back. That's why you see all these drones going back and forth. Those aren't really drones. Those are fallen angels. Listen, God is real. Jesus is real. George, please hit me up, man. I got information for you. I gotta go. I've been being looked for right now. People like Elon Musk and Incorporated, those guys, those are reptilians. They manipulate our brain and make us think that they're really humans, but they're not. They're reptilians. This world is bonkers, guys. That's why over at Skinwalker Ranch, they've been digging into the ground. It's all technology. Underneath the ground is technology, and underneath that ground is a different civilization. Guys, it's weirder than you think. I gotta go. George, hit me up.
Pedophiles are in power.
Yes.
They are literally in power. And that is intentional because then they can be controlled while they are in power. And they are also exhibiting signs of a psychopathology that lets them know that they will do harm to the masses and feel nothing because they were themselves, many of them, raped when they were children. Yep. It's not a coincidence that Justin Trudeau is gay. Obama, gay. Zelensky, gay. Emmanuel Macron, gay and married to a trans man who molested him when he was a child.
Wow.
And that despite the overwhelming evidence, for me, the litmus test now is like Brigitte Macron. I'm like, if you want to figure out who is a fraud in media, there's no way to read that 6-part series and go through it and come out of it being like, no, totally legit. Like these are just rumors. It's like one picture of yourself in your first 30 years of living, please. And they
show me her brother.
Where's your brother?
Where is
John
he?
Michel.
I'll show you my brother.
Cathedral in the south of France, in a place called Narbonne. And this cathedral, like many other cathedrals, was designed by the Knights Templar and sympathizers of the Knights Templar. Now, we know through the confessions of the Knights Templar that they were involved in black magic, and they had idols called Baphomets. And, really the big joke about these cathedrals is that people pay thousands of pounds to come on pilgrimages, say from Germany or Yugoslavia or somewhere. People think they're going to have a wonderful Christian spiritual holiday. Well, that's far from the truth. The truth of the matter is that this is a Kabbalistic temple, and it contains carvings of most of the demons that you find in ancient magical scriptures, such as the Ars Goetia, the Testament of Solomon, the Clavicule of Solomon, and many of the other magical texts that have made their way into Europe from ancient Babylon, ancient Chaldea, which is a province of Babylon, and from Sumeria as well. Well, the truth of the matter is that many people who claim to be cardinals and priests and members of the Catholic Church are actually involved in black magic. And there is such a thing as a black mass. Now, the black mass is exactly the same as the Catholic mass, except everything is reversed. And instead of praising Jesus and God, they praise Satan and Lucifer.
The reason why they're doing this is that they want us to become entranced by the idea of this religion, to have it be cool, to have it be trendy. So one of the things they do is this symbol, which is 666. Each finger is one of the stems of the 6. So you'll see people do stuff like this. You'll also see them put their finger over their eye like this. That's the all-seeing eye. Or they'll do this a lot. You'll have this kind of symbolism. So they're out there putting out these sigils and signs and codes and symbols, and they do it through things like pop music. So people start watching what's ever popular, and they're seeing flames, and they're seeing people dancing around in Baphomet horns, and they're seeing all this really strange stuff. Their goal, again, is to acquaint us with their religion so that if they get their goal realized, which is to create a massive world economic collapse, greatly reduce population, and then come out as our liberators, giving us this technology, giving us what they consider to be freedom, we would actually be trading our sovereignty for
regular board meetings, like around big board tables, and we're all gathered together, and two extraterrestrials come and they sit on one end and we ask them questions.
In the course of his astral projections, he discovered that we're living in a control system that is managed by entities who work for a demiurge that's harvesting us for what he called loosh. He said that we're in a loosh farm, that humans are being deliberately subjected to conditions that create extreme emotional states. Extreme suffering, misery, fear, terror, ecstasy, extreme desire, pathological impulses, and these are all being used to basically generate a form of energy that they can harvest from the human soul, including after death, where they basically juice souls for the loosh.
Noah's Ark, if you look at the country of Turkey, over here at the far corner in Turkish, on a Turkish map, it says Noah on Gumshi, which means Noah's big boat. This way, 5 kilometers. They got signs, you drive right to it. The Bible says it rested in the 7th month upon the mountains, plural mountains, of Ararat. Right here, Life magazine published the article about the high-altitude spy plane in 1960 that flew over eastern Turkey. And there's a mud and lava flow here coming off the mountains of Ararat. And they noticed this weird teardrop-shaped object in there. I said, what is that? Nobody thought much about it, but they did a few expeditions there and said, man, this might be Noah's Ark. In 1978, there was an earthquake. That area is very geologically unstable. And either it came up or the ground fell down. We don't know, but the result's the same. It's now sticking up out of the ground about 20 feet.
Wow.
And Ron and others verified that, hey, this is indeed Noah's Ark right there. Radar scans show beams underneath, deck timbers, heavy-duty lumber down in there. It was apparently bolted together with rivets. They knew about iron. Remember we read that in Genesis chapter 4, Tubal Cain, an artificer of brass and iron. I mean, that was way back before the flood. That was Adam's great-grandson. So they find these rivets over there. Apparently, giant rivets were used to bolt the ark together. And it looked like it's made out of 3 layers of wood, plywood. One theory is that gopher wood means plywood, 3 layers laminated. And they cut a section of it off. And sure enough, there are 3 very distinct layers of wood, 4.5 inches thick. That's heavy-duty plywood. So the ark would have landed way up here at Kazan, which, by the way, is Turkish language means village of 8. Why would you name a village of 8? How many people on that boat? 8. Yeah, what do you think? Anyway, it's now way down here, 17 miles away. But there's the village of Kazan.
The man who was exalted to the highest position in Illuminism and Masonry at that time was a man named Albert Pike. In 1887 and 88, these men established what was called a Palladian Rite. They established 3 great world centers of Masonic control for international conspiracy and world revolution. One was in the United States, one was in Germany, and one was in Rome. Albert Pike spoke and wrote in 16 languages fluently. He was one of the most amazing geniuses the world had ever known, and yet he led out in magnificent seances where demons would manifest and float around in the air right out in public. From a letter that he wrote to the Palladium, the secret society, in 1889, Albert Pike said, "That which we say to the crowd is that we worship God. But," and he's saying, but it is the God that one worships without superstition. You see, the God of human reason. It says the religion should be by all us initiates of the high degrees maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. That's the religion of the Illuminati. Yes, he says, Lucifer is God. And unfortunately, Adonai is God also, for the absolute can exist only as two gods. They believed in a balance between good and evil. But notice, Lucifer is their God, and Adonai, he says, is unfortunately God also. That's the name they give to Jesus Christ.
Like, what is happening behind the scenes that people don't realize? How much of the news is just total propaganda and just missing 50%, 90% of the detail?
So I want to pin that on you, because that's the right question. And I want you to answer it honestly, because he's asking the right question. How much of the news is wrong?
Well, I mean, I think if it's a proper news source and they are reporting facts, right? Like observable facts, then they're getting those right. The problem is that so much of news media isn't reporting facts, it's so much opinion. And when you start getting into the opinion, so much of that is just what's the word, conjecture, right? They're guessing. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Just like you were saying, there's a lot of backroom conversations that are happening that the media will never see, right? What they see is what the governments want them to see. When the U.S. government or the government of France comes out and makes some kind of big, like, oh, we're doing this now. Who knows what's really happening behind the scenes? Something is happening behind the scenes, but we will never be privy to that until the next big announcement,
So, and I just want to chime in, because what Jihi said there is with the very professional, journalistically sound news sources, what they report that's observable is factual. Well, we all know your journalistically sound news sources are increasingly shrinking. There's probably three that you can think of, right? Like Reuters. I would say Reuters is journalistically sound. The Economist is journalistically sound.
Do you think that one political party or another is better at providing a broader clarity as to what's happening, or they're equally culpable in their facade that they're presenting to the world?
Equally culpable. Yeah, I do not think the political parties.
Until you've been on Capitol Hill and actually watched these assholes yell at each other on camera and then have lunch together and give fist bumps, you don't get it. It's so twisted and
so it's all
perverted.
theater.
It's all theater.
It's all theater.
In the U.S. government, it's all theater, because at the end of the day, they all want the same thing.
Yep.
They all want a re-election, another term in office. They all want to make sure that they don't have to go find a real job. They all want to make sure that they can vote and control their own salaries. That's really what they want. And then they want to make sure that any newcomers that come in understand this is how business is done. And then the American people, we give them permission to do that, because we only show up at like 30% to vote anyways. And they know that. So they know exactly who the 1 out of 3 people is that's going to show up to vote, and exactly what to say to get that constituent to come out every midterm. And that's what they do when the time comes to do it.